Entrepreneurs of the Midlands, welcome. Good afternoon. Welcome to Conversations with Entrepreneurs and our February 2021 edition. Hope you're having a good afternoon. We are delighted to have another interview for you of another of the region's marvellous entrepreneurs, and we will learn, I know, because I know what's coming up, an enormous amount from today's guest. I'll leave the introductions to John in a moment, but in the meantime, I will just cover some house rules for you. First of all, this is intended to be as interactive as we can manage with a webinar format. So we have the Q&A function turned on within Zoom. Attendees, please use the Q&A. Have a think about the questions that you would like to ask our marvellous interviewee while you're listening to the interview. And fire them in during the interview or indeed shortly after the interview, and we will filter them. And if it's possible for your question to be asked, it will be asked. You're going to find that today, one of the themes that comes out of the interview will be around disruption. So you might want to think about questions that are on that topic. Is your business subject to disruption? Or are you looking to disrupt others? And if so, how? And do you want to bounce your ideas off a fellow entrepreneur? We also have the chat function open. Please chat away, introduce yourselves, use it for networking and chucking ideas and tips around. Keep it clean because we have pressed the big red button today. We're recording the audio and visual footage, and we're recording the chat and Q&A as well. Without further ado, over to the introductions of our interviewer and our interviewee for today. John.
Thank you, David. Well, today it's our pleasure to introduce Joel, multi-award winning businessman, public speaker and advisor. With a passion for driving business growth and entrepreneurial leadership in the West Midlands and beyond. So Joel was awarded an OBE for services to business support and enterprise in 2016. In recognition of his many ambassador and fellow and non-exec roles and his tireless work as a champion of entrepreneurship. An accomplished entrepreneur in his own right, Joel has founded and co-founded several fintech companies, including most recently GFA Exchange. So it's often said, isn't it, the best advice comes from those who have been there, done that, and gotten the t-shirt to prove it. Which brings us on to the entrepreneur of our discussion today. So welcome Steven. Steven is the founder and CEO of Warwick Music Group, based in North Warwickshire and employing 15 people worldwide. The company manufactures musical instruments that make the joy of music accessible and fun, including the world's first plastic trombone, the P-bone, which has sold over 250,000 units worldwide. Now, the Advantage Creative Fund was the first investor into Warwick Music Group, and I'm pleased to say that Advantage Creative is still a co-investor in this great business alongside others. And that's how I've come to know and respect Steven as a great entrepreneur. Under Steven's leadership, Warwick Music Group has won several awards for innovation, including, and here's just a few, I can't name them all, Steven, 2017 winner of the Mills and Reeve Innovation 50 Award, 2018 Midlands winner in the Spectator Economic Disruptor Award, and 2019 Queen's Award for Enterprise Innovation. So we're delighted that Steven could join us and look forward to hearing more about that enterprise and innovation journey, and importantly, lessons that Steven has learned along the way that he can share with us today. Over to you, Joel and Steven.
Brilliant. So thank you very much, John, David, and the team, and welcome to everyone who's on the call today. Today's going to be a fascinating opportunity to really understand the journey, the lessons, the pain, the suffering, the challenges, but the successes of being a disruptive business and having a disruptive mindset that's way past just the idea of being commercially successful. So I'm absolutely pleased, and it's an absolute privilege to welcome Steven to today's event, to be interviewed and to share his passion and knowledge with us all. So how are you, Steven? You well?
I'm great, Joel, thank you. And firstly, thanks to John from Advantage Creative and Dave from Mills and Reeve for the invitation. It's a real privilege to be here with you this afternoon.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's just get straight into it, Stephen, because I think many in the region will know you for the fantastic work that you've been doing for a number of years and really supporting not just the current, but the future generation of young people in our region, but also nationally and indeed internationally too. But not many may actually know the actual backstory. Not many may actually understand who Stephen is, where this idea came from, and what actually has driven you thus far. So I just wonder if you could just take a couple of minutes just to tell the world who you are.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I suppose the journey starts back as a 9-year-old boy. You know, I was sat in school and the music teacher walked out from carrying this shiny, strange object and said, you know, does anyone want to play this? And all of a sudden I found my hand being raised. I don't know why, but there's a phrase in the trombone world: the trombone chooses you. You don't choose the trombone. So I at that moment, I picked up this object and I kind of went home to my mum and dad and said, I want to play the trombone. And they were great, you know, hugely supportive. And I started on this journey, quite a painful journey, I would add, you know, of working out how to play it and progress. And very quickly, that was where my love of music came from. And I was a pretty good player, and I did the county orchestras and things like that. But I was never really good enough to be professional. I realised quite early on that professional music making wasn't going to be my thing. Although I loved being, you know, amateur in that sense of amo, I loved music. And that was the start of the involvement in music. And then, you know, my university, I was very fortunate. I did an engineering degree at Warwick University, and then I did a postgrad degree in European cultural policy and administration. And I as all these things, I kind of fell into a business by accident with another trombone teacher, which was related to music. And then all of a sudden, as things grew, we came upon the crazy idea of, you know, well, the trombones, you know, the last trombone player I saw on the TV was Don Lusher back in the days of Dusty Bin and Ted Rogers and all that sort of 3, 2, 1.
I just about remember that.
yeah, long time ago. But the instrument was dying out, and actually there was a report by Youth Music a long time ago where, you know, bassoon, oboe, trombone, euphonium, tuba, they classed these instruments as on the verge of extinction, literally. And we just got, the three people got together, Chris Fowler, Hugh Rashley and myself, and we said, you know, we're going to do something about this because we really believe in the instrument. And I think, like with all entrepreneurs, you don't start an entrepreneurial business because you want to make money. That's not why you do it. It's about, you want to solve a problem, you want to help people, you have a passion for something. And for us, it was about, we wanted to make music, and the trombone initially as our first instrument, accessible, easy and fun, because that's the journey that we wanted all children to have access to.
And that's really great to hear, because you're absolutely right. It's that almost childlike state that we sometimes forget when we start on this entrepreneurial journey. You know, we have this view of the world and what we're going to do, and we're driven and we're like, yeah, we know we're good to go, until you actually start that first day of startup. And then oh gosh, what have I signed up for? But you're absolutely right. It has to be a purpose bigger than just that commercial success. It has to be something larger than what people would expect you to want to do as an entrepreneur. You've got to really change that narrative. And I think what you've clearly been able to achieve from that 9-year-old boy to now is the ability to disrupt a traditional space.
Yeah.
Because I would wager that the idea of creating a plastic instrument in a traditional, you know, instrument kind of world of brass, like what? So how did you feel when, and I assume you did, come against some backlash around what you were bringing to the market, and how did you deal with that?
I think, well, you're right, we did a lot. The music space, it's particularly on the wind and brass side, is a very conservative market. I mean, you're dealing with a legacy of music makers over hundreds of years who've crafted these beautiful instruments. You know, they've really put a huge amount of effort, and handmade, and still handmade today. And you can go to the Buffet Clarinet factory in Paris and see all the beautiful craftsmanship that's going on. So we're coming along saying, well, we're going to stick this on an injection molding press, and we're going to belt these out at a fraction of the cost because of the unit price is now not handmade; it's all automated.
Yeah.
But of course, the purpose is not the object. The purpose is not the instrument. The purpose is we want to make music accessible for kids. So our driver, our belief, our passion, our why, as Simon Sinek would say, is very much focused on the musical instrument is innate. It just sits there and does nothing until you put it in the hands of a person, and the person, enabling the person to be creative and have fun and engage with it. That's our driver, and it's quite hard to argue that against that. So we tend to we use positivity against the negativity. It's not about if you don't like my products, if you don't like what we're doing, if you don't like what we stand for, that's absolutely fine. But we really believe in this, and one of the things we've been able to do on this journey is take a market where there were no plastic trombones 10 years ago. In the UK now, 80% of children who start their journey on a trombone or trumpet are playing one of our instruments. That's
wow,
80%. 80%. So we've completely, and that's the data we get from our retailers, we've completely turned the market on its head. And our argument, Joel, would be those kids are having more fun and they're having a better experience to start off with. Now, we want them to go and buy brass instruments. We want them to keep doing it. But those of us in the music industry will know the biggest issue we have as music companies is retention. We cannot keep hold of players. Over 90% of musicians give up in the first 12 months. So, and that's because it's hard, and we don't make it easy, and the industry doesn't make it easy for people to learn and keep learning, have fun, and so all these companies that are helping to extend retention, keep kids engaged, that's really about getting people past that 12-month barrier. Because if you can play music for 12 months, you'll be a musician for life.
Yeah, that's such a powerful thing you said there, Stephen, because there's the purpose element, and then there's the actual execution of that purpose. But then there's also the actual practical day-to-day reality of, and it's the consistency and the sustainability through the efforts that you put in. And I think from a research and development point of view, I'm assuming that, again, the challenge of enacting on that purpose and having to invest into the development of this product, which represents more than just this innate product. It represents the accessibility, that ease, that fun. How was that journey from an R&D perspective in terms of raising finance and really investing into this ideal and this purpose?
No, that's a great question. Immensely challenging in many ways, because for us, of course, no one had done this before. There was no book in the library that we could go and pull out. So how do you make plastic trombones? In fact, when we started on the journey, and the first 3 years of like a lot of entrepreneurial businesses, you start your journey knowing that you're going to have no revenue for many years. So that's pretty scary in itself. And for us, it was a 3-year window. The innovation journey it ended up being a whole year longer than we expected. And we didn't have, all we had was the existing knowledge of how brass instruments were made. And so we started initially on this, well, what we'll do is we'll make a trombone in plastic. That's what we thought, very rationally. We take the trombone and we turn it into plastic and see how it works. It was a complete disaster. It utterly didn't work.
Okay.
So when we shifted our mindset to, no, we're going to make a plastic trombone, very subtle difference, then all of a sudden things started to fall into place. So, so this looks like a trombone, other than it's red, right? But on the outside, it looks like a trombone, but on the inside, it's completely different. So we had to change the shapes and the little subtle things that we learnt. And we were very lucky because 3D prototyping had just about become affordable. And this is back in, 2010, 2009. So we could prototype lots of little bits. And then ultimately, we got to a design that worked. We were able to get patented. We got some great advice early on, which was find yourself a really good patent lawyer and invest in it, which we did. And we've used that. We've won cases in China on our back of our patents and stopped Chinese infringers. So it's been really good for us, that has. But I mean, we've had horrible days as well, Joel. I mean, I remember tools are expensive, and especially expensive if you're an entrepreneurial business with no revenue. So, you don't get asset finance. You don't get asset finance for that sort of stuff. So the first tool we made, we got it wrong. We literally got the tool wrong. We translated our 3D prototype into tooling, and we thought it would all work. And we picked the instrument up, and the harmonics were just off. It was wrong, and it was like, and those are the moments when your house is on the line, and you start to go,
yeah,
it's just
reality,
right? And then you go back to your why and your passion, and you go, right, no, okay, and then we worked it out, and we redid the tool, and we were lucky we didn't have to scrap the whole tool, but $50,000 gone just like that,
Wow.
But we got it right. And then the upside of that was we got it right. We launched the product. We put the first 1,000 on the internet at that time because retailers weren't seriously considering selling this stuff. We put them on the internet. We sold them out in like 15 minutes. They just went. And then all of a sudden we get a phone call, and within 6 months we were being distributed by one of the biggest music distributors in the world. And then we really had to understand making products, quality control, logistics, working capital flow. All of a sudden the business challenge became very different.
So I'm assuming then, that mindset was such a pivotal tool in your own arsenal as a team to be able to respond to those challenges, those barriers, those negativities. And I think we often hear about this entrepreneurial mindset and being able to think big and be kind of, growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset and all these types of things. But we sometimes forget that those things go out the window when the proverbial actually hits the fan and you're actually in the thick of it.
Yeah.
And when it affects family, friends, you personally, it takes a lot of personal resilience to keep going. And I know it's again, another entrepreneurial cliche that, you're going to fail 1,000 times and then you'll get it right in 1,001, etc. But that disruptive mindset is crucial because sometimes you have to disrupt yourself. You have to be willing to change who you are. And I just wonder whether that was something you might have experienced yourself in you and your team in some of those darker times. And how did you support each other to keep that mindset going?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I absolutely subscribe to that notion that failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of success. And until you've understood that and been through it, it's very hard to rationalize what that really means. Because the notion that as a team, we're setting on a journey, we know we're going to fail, but we're failing as part of our journey to success, it's quite hard. Because how do you then relate that to accountability in the team and leadership and management? And I think that first notion, and Lencioni talks about this brilliantly in the dysfunctions of a team. It's that element of building trust, and the fact that we all believe in the same thing. We share that belief means that if I'm having a bad day, which happens when you're an entrepreneur, even now, you've got people who can pick you up and put their arm around you and just remind you why you're doing it. And it's very much around that comes back again to that simple thing about your purpose, having a really strong purpose. But and I as a manager and as a leader in my business, I've been very fortunate that a number of the people have been on this journey all the way through, because I think when you build a team around a shared belief system, then they don't want to leave, and you don't want them to leave, right? Yeah. So you keep them with you, and that just builds those bonds even stronger. But it's we've had some pretty dark days. I mean, like that one with the tooling. I mean, that was a pretty restless night, and you start to have all those fears of things that happen when your business is going to go under, and you think about your house and your family, and was it all worth it? But at the end of the day, we just had belief, and that we were doing the right thing, and that kept us going. And when you step back, and at the moment with this coronavirus thing, I mean, the hardest thing I found, and I'm sure in your business, John, must be the same, is you're so into the day to day. It's very hard to look up 3, 5, 10 years ahead, which is where you want to be as a CEO. You want to be one step. I mean, you think of I've got some colleagues and mentors who work in Amazon, and that the way that their mindset is 5, 10 years ahead, that's what they're thinking about. You envy that, because that's where you want to be. But of course, right now you're running a small business. You're trying to keep your business alive. You're trying to make sure that one of the disciplines I learned early on was a weekly cash flow. I mean, every week I do a cash flow forecast myself. It's just a discipline I've had. And I've done that cash flow forecast when we've had sheds of money in the bank, and not a lot of money in the bank. But, I think it's that thing about, we want to get ourselves heads up and be looking forward and trying, when you do have those bumps in the road, step back and look at the big picture. That's what I would do.
That's such a beautiful lesson. And I totally can agree with you. I think, certainly in this lockdown, the first lockdown in particular, when, you didn't have any understanding of what was going on. Second lockdown is bad, but at least you've learned a little bit from the first one. But especially in the first one, we pivoted our whole business in the middle of the lockdown. And not because we didn't think it was the right thing to do, it's because we had no other option, because we knew what the other solution or the other outcome would have been. And what it took was a sense of discipline to see it through.
Yeah.
Because making tough decisions in your business is one thing, but seeing it through and being willing to deal with the consequences on the other side that you may not even know what they are, but saying I'm going to have the discipline to continue even through the unknown, that is such a challenge. But it's understanding that, again, you've said it, that purpose, that why, that kind of real root cause behind why you're doing what you're doing. And therefore that disruption and this discipline go hand in hand. They are bedfellows. People talk about entrepreneurs being reckless and being, real risk takers. Some of the most successful entrepreneurs I've come across and I know personally are some of the most risk-averse people you'd ever meet, because it's that discipline of taking those calculated risks and doing the things like the weekly cash flow and, making sure that they're on point, because when they make that decision, that's what changes the game. And I think from what I'm hearing from your journey, you've made many of those decisions many a time. And indeed, in terms of R&D, was it an amount of £2 million, I believe, that you've invested in total with those decisions? I mean, that's a lot of R&D money right there.
I tell you what, it's a big number. It sits, we're going through our stat accounts right now. It sits, I see it there, because the accountants have this lovely way of reminding you of the total number that you spent, and then they amortize it all out. So you spent £2 million, don't you forget? So it is a healthy reminder. And of course, in our case, we've been fortunate. We had Advantage Creative came in as a seed funder. We took money from Midven from growth cap sense, and then we more recently we've taken out some debt from Maven through the Midlands Engine Fund. So we've gone through the traditional pathway, in that sense, in that journey. We've also, and this was the benefit, I suppose, of how because we scaled the business quite quickly, and bank as well. I know banks get a hard time with entrepreneurial business, and we're a creative business, right? You think we must hate banks. That's absolutely not true. We've been with HSBC for nearly 10 years, and I've got a really good understanding. My job as the creative entrepreneur is to talk to them in their language so they understand what is it that I'm going to do, and I deliver on what I tell them I'm going to do. Every creative CEO should be telling you, you've got two budgets. I run two budgets. I've got one of my investors sitting on this call, so I'm even nervous about this. There's a budget. My team.
Take yourself off. Go get yourself a cup of tea.
Cover your ears for a second, John. This is and of course, right now it's. I've had my board meeting this week, so it's always amusing when we're talking about budgets for this coming year, and of course that's pretty challenging. But just deliver on what you're going to promise to a bank, and then we've got £500,000 of facilities with HSBC. That's been pivotal to unlocking cash that we can raise into R&D. We're not paying out big dividends. Everything we're cycling back into that R&D part. That's where that 2 million has gone. So we've generated £1 million of that 2 million ourselves. That's the profit that's come out of the business. So in a sense, it's kind of half us, half of our investors, and it's an exciting journey. But I think also thinking about the disruption point there, Joel. I think it's really important that I've learned, definitely, disruption is a process. It's not a product. It's not one thing. It's time. We came in with our product. We came in at the bottom end of a market, which is typical disruptive innovation piece. We came in at that market. The quality wasn't really quite good enough. We had to work on our quality. That was the learning of how do we upskill our quality levels. We fixed that. And then we progressively moved up that value proposition chain, and the competitors have got no response. What were they going to do? And right now, one of the things that for us that came out of lockdown, which was because I set myself this kind of personal mission that as much as I'm now in the microcosm of everything in the business, because I'm trying to work out what the hell's going on in our market. We sell to music retailers and music retailers and schools, both of whom are currently shut.
Yeah, gosh. Yeah.
So and for us, we've always had sustainability has been really important to us all the way through that journey, and so we made the commitment last year to go carbon neutral. We went through that process. It was fantastic. Very, very time consuming, but that was one thing that we did because we had the time available to do it and invest in it. And that's now taking us on another journey of disruption, because the musical instrument space as well, it's not a sustainable environment. It's a challenging space, and yet you look where consumers are going, you look where the market's going, you look where the planet needs us to go. Sustainability is a key thing that companies need to look at. So
absolutely. Well, I mean, just looking at the time, look, we're nearly at the end already. Yeah. But there's a number of things that I've just been picking up as you've been speaking all the way through, and just listen to you once again. It's just so inspiring to hear how you've put that sense of disruption at the heart of everything that you've done. But I think starting off from a very clear purpose, having a really adaptable mindset, make sure you've got the discipline throughout that journey, even going back to investing back into yourself as an organization to meet equally the other type of support you were getting externally to move the business forward. So a real collaborative sense of discipline. So now then disrupting again by taking your industry into another direction through sustainability. I mean, it's just a fascinating journey you're on. And I think, the very purpose that you started out with is going to be multiplied, 1,000-fold because of what you and your team are doing. So, as a Midlands business, we have to commend you and absolutely respect you and your team for all that you're doing and representing our region, but more importantly, yourselves and the purpose that you're driving forward. But in terms of, as we begin to sum up, with all those things that you've been able to share today, are there any additional final tips or outcomes or thoughts that you might have that you'd like to maybe share with those who are on the call today to help them on their own journey of disruption, whatever that may be?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the first one would definitely be, entrepreneurship isn't about profit or sales. Profit and sales are an outcome of what you do. So, I think make sure that you really are focused on that purpose, because it is that the purpose is that guiding principle that helps you when you're making these decisions as you go on your journey. Do the right thing, do the thing that makes a difference, do the things that you're passionate about, because those values are really, really important. The values of your business and you as a team, and I appreciate, it's great to have this conversation on a one-to-one basis, but I'm standing on the shoulders of 14 other people and many others, right? So there's a whole team of people here who are part of this journey. That is absolutely fundamental, and I think there's loads of pragmatic things. We at the moment, I can tell you, we're really trying to understand a lot more about our content strategy. We use HubSpot as our marketing CRM system, which is, really almost trying to speak to every single person individually. One of the great I read it's one of my recommended reads was a great book by Marcus Sheridan. He challenged you to write a blog article about the problems of your products. Be that. So I did. It's one of the most read blogs on our website. I talk openly about what are the problems of buying a classical musical instrument, and of course, and be open and transparent with customers about that. And it's things like that. I think it's really valuable. I mean, I know I mentioned the cash flow weekly thing, but I mean, I think it's good to have a discipline, Joel, that you do every week. Whatever it is. If in my case, I'm not an accountant. I've got 3 of those in the board meeting when I have my board meeting anyway, so I don't need to worry too much about that. But I need to have a good understanding of cash. I know, because it's very easy when you've got long working capital cycles. Really be on top of that. If cash isn't the thing that your business needs, you know, if it's some other analytics, but do something regularly. Keep yourself in touch so you've got that KPI running through your business. And I guess the last thing is time. You know, this stuff takes time. I don't think there are shortcuts. I'm not sure that I buy into this kind of notion that you can rush through this process. I think disruptive innovation is a process. It takes time. You need maturity. My leadership style has changed in those 10, 13 years. You need different types of leadership styles at different times of business evolution. Just give yourself time. Because if you're doing the right thing, then it will come good.
That's brilliant. I think you're absolutely right. Time is both an enemy and a friend, depending on how you choose to use it. But you have to give yourself that time to achieve those things. You can't shortcut anything. And I think more in these times that we're living in than ever before, whether we want to or not, it's forced us all to think about how we've been disrupted, what we need to disrupt, and how we're going to manage that disruption for the future. And so, you know, I think your story and your journey so far has absolutely reiterated the fact that it's okay to be disruptive. We just need to understand why and how and be disciplined about that. This thing around innovation, is it disruptive? I leave that to the world to judge. But clearly, it's entrepreneurs like yourselves who are showing that it's not all about innovation either, is it?
Well, I love stealing quotes. So I know that, you know, disruptors are innovators, but not all innovators are disruptors.
Love that.
So it's again, not one of mine, but I think that's really good. You know, it's okay to be innovative. It's okay to have an innovation. You know, but you know, if you think right back to the turn of the last century, Henry Ford with his Model T, you know, that's disruption. That's a car for the common person. That was what he was doing. And his disruption was not cars, because there weren't any other cars. His disruption was the horse and carriage. You don't need to have this horse and carriage. You can have a car, you know, and that's disruption, you know. And you look at the stuff like, you know, Elon Musk. I mean, Tesla, is it really disruptive? Hyperloop, wow, that's disruptive. You know, SpaceX, you know, affordable space travel. You know, and like you, I mean, I'm not going to start picking on.
No, we can definitely both be here all day with that.
Yeah, no, exactly. But I think it's just, you know, it's a process. Disruption, innovation is a process. It's not a product in isolation. That's the important thing, I would say. So it's a journey, you know.
Absolute journey, and may your journey continue with blessings and positivity. And thank you for your time today, Stephen. You've been amazing, and I'm sure those who are involved in the call today have taken a lot from what you've said, and we look forward to hearing some of their comments. But David, John, I know you've been listening intently, and I just wondered if there were any questions you might have for Stephen at this time, any questions that have come through.
Absolutely, from my perspective. Can I pile in, John, or have you got a burning one?
Go ahead. Yes, I've got one.
Mine's really predictable. Spot the lawyer in the room. I was really struck by the comment that you made about trading in China. And this is not a question about China. It's actually more Brexit minded and, you know, doing business from this island with the rest of the world. And what immediately struck me was, did the event of you experiencing a third party trying to infringe your product, did that affect your confidence in trading internationally? And was there anything that you learned apart from it's a good idea to get a patent, which was the great advice you received in the early days?
That's a really good question. I mean, I think the first thing is it's a massive lesson in emotional intelligence. Because as an entrepreneur, when someone copies your idea, you take that personally offensively, you know, and it's a real personal thing. You know, we the three of us created this thing, you know, no one had done it before, and then someone had the gall to think they could copy it. So you go through that kind of, you get quite emotional about that. So then you have to, so your training of emotional intelligence kicks in pretty quickly, you know, and go, right, calm down, manage the emotions. And then you thank the person who advised you that, you know, the value of IP. It's too easy for innovative companies to just brush that. Oh, it's expensive. Yes, IP is expensive. We've probably spent £250,000, I would think, on IP costs in terms of trademarks, patents, and you go through the process of, you know, I've learned a lot about this process in my time, you know, and it's a painful process, and you have to make pretty difficult decisions at points in time. But again, we had a really good patent position. We print on a matter of principle, I would say, which, you know, my father's a retired solicitor, so, you know, he was slightly nervous, but, you know, but on the basis that, yeah, we're going to prosecute this in China. And I think we took that action, and we won. And, you know, the Chinese court sided with us. Now, it helped that we manufacture our product in China as well. So we could demonstrate that there was an economic impact to that in China. And we were by far the market leader, and there was clearly a case of infringement happening. But it was very kind of, it did two things, actually, that case. And it was a risky decision, but it meant that, one, everyone understood, if you're going to copy us, we're going to come after you. And we've only had to use that situation 2 or 3 times. And most of the times, you know, after the first time, you get your lawyer to write a carefully worded letter without threatening anyone. And I've learned about that bit as well. But, you know, but most of the time, people realise. So you build a reputation as, I'm going to defend my IP. The second thing is, I think it comes down to your market position, I would say. You know, we've always focused, and we've focused on our end user, because when your purpose is about making kids enjoy music, you really think about kids. I mean, I'm a father, I've got 3 young kids who are learning music. You know, a lot of our employees are the same. You know, we're teachers, we're parents, you know, we're business people. So we're very close to our customers. We speak to our customers. Now, the music industry has a very antiquated sales model of the manufacturer sells to a distributor, distributor sells to a retailer, retailer sells to a consumer. So a lot of people don't have that relationship with their end users. But in our case, we do. And so we were transparent about it. And we you know, we make this stuff, we've got the patents, here's how we made it, here's how we know that we own all this stuff. And we got a real kind of support, I guess, from our customer base, which was that fills you with kind of, really fills you with joy. There's no greater feeling getting an email from a customer in the morning. So we had one last night on Instagram. My wife shared, she does our social media. She said, customers just randomly posted, because we have a policy of, we replace parts free of charge all over the world, because we have so few issues with quality, because our quality is so good.
You can do it. Yeah.
We can do it. And so we get this massive outpouring of positivity. And last night, somebody in America needed an extra spring. Warwick Music sent it to me free of charge from the UK. It's arrived. It's brilliant. Thanks ever so much. Love working, love being a customer of a customer-centric company. Stuff like that. So customers are really good at filling you with joy when you're having days with, people who've ripped you off, basically.
Indeed, it's really interesting. I'm really glad I asked the question. I hesitated because it's obviously the one that would catch the eye of a lawyer. But what you've confirmed is, I think, an absolute nugget of know-how, which is, by all means, do spend your money on registering IP when it's really important to your business. But that's not the only thing that you should be thinking about. You should be thinking about the broader economic equation, especially when you're trading abroad. So if you were defending a UK patent, for example, and you had no manufacturing facility overseas, based on the way that you saw it and the way that it went for you, it sounds like that's really significant. And that means that the protection of a business's valuable IP, particularly in your circumstances where you really invested in it, it's down to much more than the piece of paper that you managed to get out of the IP registry.
I would absolutely. And again, I think it was even my IP lawyer who reminded me that a patent at the end of the day is just a license to go to court with somebody, right? It doesn't, in and of itself, until it's tested in the court situation, it's still just a piece of paper. So it's a valuable piece of paper. But I think the thing that we've learned most of all is the commercial element of IP is really powerful. So and also think about. And I'm also minded that John's sitting there. He's very kindly stayed into our business. We have tried to get rid of him a few times, but we can't quite get rid of him. But it's value. It's a value. It doesn't sit on my balance sheet. I am not allowed to put in the intangible asset that that my business has created. It doesn't sit there. You know, that will be decided at the end of the day when the business gets sold, hopefully. You know, but ultimately, it's a huge part of our value. And the patent's there. It's been published. We've got another, you know, I expect about another 11 years to go on it. It's really, really important. So, and the brand as well, you know, the trademarks that we've done and building up that brand reputation, it's really going to be a big part of our value going forward. So,
yeah, John, I think you had a question, and then if you'd like to close and sum up maybe as well.
Do, and it's what we touched upon earlier when David mentioned the fact that you sell internationally, and it's always something I've had in mind right from the get-go. You've had your eye on that international market. You've been ambitious. Obviously, the world has changed recently in terms of, you know, barriers and trading internationally. So what advice might you give to entrepreneurs about thinking about the worldwide market and how to design services and products with an eye to export and trading internationally?
Yeah, I mean, we're a 70% exporter. So 70% of our revenue derives from overseas income. We are also unashamedly a DIT export champion, so Department of International Trade, who are brilliant, I will say. So my first point of go and find yourself an international trade advisor. We work with a guy called Pete Chapman, who's really, really good, and also, as it happens, has music industry experience. And you know, DIT are good. They've got lots of. We did a music event in 2019 in Chicago, a big national event, the consulate in Chicago, which has more people in trade than they do on, you know, doing things like passports and all that sort of stuff. So they've got a massive trade team in the Chicago area. We had the consular general came down, participated, helped, you know. So I think there's a big element to the support that you can get. I mean, they're not going to get you business, but they're going to help you and they're going to connect you. So I would definitely be part of my advice. Go and connect with DIT. And I think from a, you know, I guess there's a soft Brexit question in there, John, as well, maybe. Yeah. Look, I mean, it's messy, it's bumpy right now. My feeling is that, and we've had containers stuck in Zeebrugge because they couldn't get into Felixstowe, although that's not a Brexit issue, really. That's more, you know, a COVID-related issue. We have had challenges getting product into Europe. That's all going to get sorted out in the next 6 months. I think the problem will be is at the moment all businesses are bearing more cost. You know, Brexit at the moment is just more cost. So what we've all got to hope is that the vision that we've been sold of more opportunity and growth and international sales will offset those costs that we're all bearing at the moment. But I wouldn't read too much. You know, going back to what Joel and I were talking about, that take your step back, think long term. Yes, it's bumpy right now, but we've been trading with the EU for, you know, decades without there being borders. So of course it's going to take a bit of working out, but we'll get there. You know, that bit will sort itself out. Whether we'll be able to recoup the extra cost, well, we're going to need. I hope that's what happens, because otherwise businesses would have borne all that cost themselves.
Thank you. Joel, you need to unmute and.
See, typical. What did we ever do before technology, right? I just wanted to say, I think what you've done, Steven, is really encapsulate a real, in the last 45 minutes, a real kind of canter of the startup journey, really, from the origins as a 9-year-old boy to your purpose, right through to a reality of where you are now and where you're going to be next. And I think there's many lessons that you've shared that I think are relatable to many entrepreneurs across many different sectors. So just want to again thank you for being with us this morning, or this afternoon, I should say, and sharing those views in a much candid and honest and transparent way that you have. And David and John, I'd encourage you to keep getting more of Steven's for these conversation entrepreneurial series, because this is the reality that many entrepreneurs and business owners are going through right now in terms of disruption. But it's this type of advice from peers that can really help them get through. So on behalf of the team, just want to say thank you for taking part in the Conversation Entrepreneur series, those on the call today. And then David, John, if you'd just like to maybe just sum up and finish off for yourselves.
Thank you, Joel, and thank you, Stephen. It's been a fascinating discussion. I've really enjoyed that. So thank you for your time. Do know that you've given your time and been generous with it. So thanks for sharing. It's much appreciated. I'm going to draw us to a close now and just ask our audience in the room, please watch this space. Please follow us on social media for posts about our next event. It will be next month. Same time, same place. We follow a monthly format, and we'll be announcing details of our next Entrepreneur in the Hot Seat very soon. Thank you all again for joining us. Goodbye.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Take care, everyone. Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye-bye.